Rangers fans, welcome to season 3 of Liberty Blue, the essential New York Rangers podcast. I'm Andrew Chelney. That's Nick Zararis. And Nick, it is December 30th, 2024, and the New York Rangers are dead last in the Metro with no light at the end of the tunnel.
There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of different avenues and paths to go down, but simply put, as much as everybody wants to make this about effort and quitting and trying, we all want to talk about Zibanejad, Kreider, Trocheck, to a lesser extent Panarin, Lafreniere, but still those guys. They're playing 3 AHL caliber defensemen right now. I know they still have Adam Fox, who is very good, but he's not playing as well as he can, and he's being forced to carry someone significantly less talented than he is. You know, last night I was thinking about it. I was like, is this worse than spring of 2018 where we were playing Rob O'Gara and Ryan Sproul and Neil Pionk? And the answer is no, because we're playing Adam Fox, who is a good NHL defenseman, and no one in that group of 6 guys down the backstretch of 2018 was good. But through 2 weeks, there's nothing I've seen from William Borgen or Ukko Vakanainen to tell me that this is going to stabilize or calm down or be better. You know, you hope that Miller coming back stabilizes the defense to some degree, where if you can have, you know, Fox and one of Schneider, Lindgren, Miller, and then another pair of the other 2 guys who aren't with Fox, you can at least have 2 functional NHL pairs. But the simple matter of the fact is, as much as we want to talk about the offensive issues, this team's fundamental issue is defense. It is not talented enough, and frankly, it's not good enough. You know, they had a clear mandate after the way the series against Florida went, where they couldn't transition, they couldn't go from defense to offense, they couldn't hold Florida off for extended periods of time, and they didn't address that. They brought back the same group, but Zach Jones in the Eric Gustafson spot, and said, we'll figure it out. This is what we've done for 3 straight years, is we will figure out our defense as the year goes along, and we will be good enough on the power play, and we will have one line that is really good out 5-on-5, and that'll be enough. And everything that could go wrong, and we're going to unpack that at one point on the episode, the differences year over year, this year versus last year, but everything that could go wrong in the supposition of it's fine, we'll figure it out as the year goes along, has gone wrong. And that's why it's like got this snowball effect. Because like we all can agree they're not this bad on talent, but everything they were expecting to work for them hasn't worked for them, on top of the things that were questions coming into the season. You know, it's a perfect storm of bad choices, and all of those bad choices having the worst possible outcome.
If everything could have gone as well as it could have last year, minus the Hedl injury, right? You win all these games. I think it was 55 games. You win the President's Trophy. You come back and you win all these games in the third period. All these bounces are going your way. You're getting great goaltending from Shesterkin and from Jonathan Quick. You have, you know, these depth guys coming in like Will Cooley, who's last season performed better than anybody expected him to, and you get this all around 100% buy-in from everybody in the locker room, and everything essentially went according to plan, and even better. Like that was best case scenario. If that was best case, this is worst case, where everything that possibly could go wrong is absolutely going wrong. The offense doesn't. I mean, the 5-on-5 offense. So we've talked about this for years. 5-on-5 offense wasn't great to begin with. And now
they had one good line at 5-on-5 last year, and it was one of the best lines in all of hockey, and that was enough. But right now, they don't have anything.
The 5-on-5 offense right now doesn't exist. And in a lot of games the last few years, the power play and the penalty kill were able to essentially mask a lot of that. And that led to a lot of wins, just by sheer willpower to score on the power play. This season, the power play doesn't exist. And if you can find it, please let me know. Finally, Mika Zibanejad has been taken off of the first power play unit, and his response was essentially him sulking about it. And it's like, how many times can we run it back to trying the same experiment and expecting different results? It's about time the power plays changes. Lafreniere on power play 1. We've been screaming about it for years that Lafreniere should be on power play 1. finally, it took a month of December where the Rangers have so far been 3-9, free falling to the bottom of the Metro division, to finally get a change in the power play and to finally see some kind of action from this coaching staff. I mean, again, like, you can't solely put the blame on Laviolette. You can't solely put the blame on, like you said, Zibanejad and Trocheck and all these guys. This is a team effort. And so far, I don't see any effort anywhere.
It's one of those things where, last year they were 24% on the power play, and, season long, they had one of the best in the entire NHL. This year, they are sitting at 20.48%. So they're significantly lower. They're close to the bottom of the league. I think they're 20th in power play. The kill has been fine, but, the penalty kill is not a particularly large segment of the game. And I feel that we've reached kind of, I don't want to say a breaking point, because that happened already, but
oh yeah,
it at this point you see where the lines are being drawn, who is exempt, who isn't. We see Zach Jones once again being made to wear this for whatever reason. I don't understand the loyalty to guys you acquired for nothing, basically, in Borgen and Vakanainen versus Jones, who, and look, there's a conversation to be had about how the Rangers, especially Drury, has handled guys he didn't draft and the prioritization he's given his guys versus guys that were here prior to him assuming the reins. But when you think about it, you are watching the lines being drawn. If you read Larry's column today, he voraciously pounded them as a group of gutless losers who are crybabies, who have no interest in winning, who only care about their feelings. And I do think this group deserves some ire for their lack of heart or resilience in the face of adversity. But make no mistake about this, the general manager owns this. This group, which has had the same flaws, they have changed some of the supporting pieces, third liners, depth defensemen, whatever, what have you, over the last 3-4 years. This is the same core group of guys. And you can tell me, well, they got rid of Gaudreau and Trouba. Those were not the only core pieces that were not good enough over the years. As much as it sucks to rag on Zibanejad and Kreider for their performances later in the postseason in 21 against the Devils, and then this past year against the Panthers in particular, those were signs of long-term statistical trends. Guys like Kreider, and I'll start with Kreider because I think this one is easier to explain. Kreider peaked very late. A lot of people fail to recognize that a lot of guys don't hit 54 goals as a career high at 30. That's not something that happens. That is an extreme outlier. And a lot of people just assume that Kreider and Zibanejad and Trocheck and Panarin, for that matter, we're just going to continue to play at really high levels into their mid to late 30s. And Kreider's old. For professional hockey, Kreider is old. He's got more than a full season of playoff games on top of the regular season games he's accumulated over the years. He's been relatively healthy in his career, but the miles accumulate. And I'm not saying he's entirely fallen off a cliff. He's non-functional. But the expectations of first-line play driver, elite net front presence, those have an expiration date. Those have a finite amount of time. You go and look at the NHL edge stats, and this is one of the useful components of this, is the simple fact, you measure, as much as we like to talk about effort as being, an intangible, like work rate, that type of thing, it's a measurable trait. You can measure work rate because we have access to that data now. As much as the NHL pretends we don't want this stuff, this is very useful information. So I'm going to click over to my spreadsheet here where I wrote these down. If you go and look at the NHL Edge Stats websites, you compare year over year. They have 4 years of data. 21-22 is the first year to this most recent year. Chris Kreider's top skate speed 3 years ago was 92nd percentile. This year, it's 77th. Bursts over 20 miles per hour. So that's the highest range of speed they capture. He's 87th percentile now, which is still good. But last year he was 92nd. The 2 years before that, he was 98th. And then when we talk about distance covered, so like actual effort, how much are you skating during the course of a game? 93rd percentile 4 years ago, 81st 3, 86th last year, 57th percentile this year. There is a measurable sign that Kreider is covering less ground, he is skating slower, and he is being less noticeable. Now, we can use our thinking caps and say, well, we know he's dealing with an injury. We know he's been trying to play through that injury. And as we have long said on Liberty Blue, at a certain point, playing through an injury becomes selfish. When you are not effective and you are out there actively harming your team by being out there, you are no longer being courageous. You are being stupid. There's a very fine line between courageous and stupid. The bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward in spite of it. All of that is great. It sounds good in the war movies, but like, we're trying to win hockey games here. Sit a week. If your back still hurts, sit another week. Don't try and play through it for the sake of playing through it, because you're not helping. And I don't want to say Kreider's entirely done, like cooked, but like, if you have the injury and then you have the sustained decline of like just getting older, it accumulates, it snowballs. And believe me, before he scored the hat trick in game 6 last year, I tweeted, I am tired of Kreider sulking his shoulders every single time he loses a puck battle or there's a turnover. Like, it's not just a 1 year thing. It's not just a multi-year thing. It is a long sustained pattern.
The thing about Kreider is this: when you are one of the elite shot tippers in the entire planet, it may be the most elite currently in the NHL, but you are a first line winger, you can't only do that. This season, especially in particular, Chris Kreider has done what besides standing in front of the net? And I understand, and make no mistake, Chris Kreider is an elite level talent at deflecting pucks on the power play. He's lethal when he parks in front of the crease. Goalies, hate him to death. He's really good at what he does. But when you are an elite winger like Kreider is, or supposed to be, and you are making the kind of money that Kreider is, when you have the kind of expectations that Kreider has, that is taped to being a first line player, being that kind of difference maker, you have to do more than just standing in front of the net. I know a lot of outlets have highlighted Chris Kreider has 1 assist all year. Chris Kreider isn't creating offense at 5-on-5 by himself. He's not.
I'm doing math. I'm supporting your claim.
Yes.
Keep going.
He's not helping to create offense at 5-on-5 this season. He hasn't skated to loose pucks all that much. He hasn't fought for loose pucks all that much. And when he has, he tends to lose them, which you could say about the entire team, but the point stands. When you are allegedly a first line talent, you have to show me that you're a first line talent. Because right now, Chris Kreider is not showing me, nor is he showing anybody else, that he is currently a first line talent. Listen, like, as much as I love his power play and his prowess, and he has a fantastic shot that he never uses for some reason, he chooses not to. You have to show me that you're a first line player. Otherwise, you're not. Otherwise, you're a power play merchant, just like the rest of the team, was prior to this season. When now they can't score on the ocean for some, nothing is working for them. If you revert to being a power play merchant, but the power play is out of business, what are you selling me? What are you trying to sell me? You have no products to sell. Your doors are open, but there is no product. What do you want me to buy? There's nothing.
And that's one of the to fact check, he's on pace for 25 less shots on goal than the last year. That was the math I was working out. And like, for the record, that what Andrew just said is why I keep going back to the fact that the Rangers are insulting you every time they text you to say buy tickets. Buy tickets. It's $221 to sit in an obstructed view section. $220 for one seat to watch Will Borgen and Ukko Vakanainen and Sam Carrick and Will Cooley and who used to be Mika Zibanejad and who used to be Chris Kreider. It's a great deal. We won't charge you $15 of fees on top of the sticker price of the ticket. There is nothing to sell here, and the Rangers are playing like 18 skaters who have never played organized hockey together before. There is no continuity. There is no flow. There is no, there's no synergy. one of the real telltale bellwether signs of this team over the last 3 or 4 seasons has been the transition play. When they have been at their best and when they were really rolling last year, they were going from defense to offense quickly. They were playing at a really high tempo. They were using that cross seam pass to get defenses moving laterally, to get goaltenders moving laterally. And this year, they can't string together just 3 passes in a row, let alone get that cross seam pass. So you have no power play. Your penalty kill is still good. I'll give you that. Your defense is atrocious. Your most notable forwards are Will Cooley and Sam Carrick. This is not tenable. This is wholly untenable. There are 50 some odd games remaining of this. And look, part of me just wants this to get as bad as it possibly can, solely so the general manager might start to get some of this blame. Because, like, to open a column with this ownership and management won't stand for this, as if management is not culpable in allowing this to happen. That brings us to the first, like, real topic I want to talk about today. I had a good back and forth with somebody last week. It's very funny. You know, one of the more famous interactions on Twitter were the 2 guys who agreed to meet up in LA and fight over Kobe on Christmas Day. And I was having a back and forth with somebody who
we are so chronically online, by the way.
But I mean, that's pretty well known. Most people know about the meetup in, I think it was Calabasas. It might have been.
I think it was Cal. I think you're right.
I think it was Calabasas. Yeah, to meet up about fighting on Kobe on Christmas Day. I was having a back and forth with somebody. He goes, "Why do you keep talking about culture? The team is very bad." I think it's both, but the reason I keep hammering culture is because the reason Chris Drury got this job is that Jeff Gorton and John Davidson allowed a culture to permeate where Artemi Panarin could get ragdolled on the ice and no one would do anything. Again, we're ignoring the fact that Jacob Trouba, Chris Kreider, and I forget who the other person that wasn't in the lineup that game that would have maybe done something wasn't in the game. But whatever.
Was it Ryan Reeves?
No, Reeves wasn't on the team.
That was the answer. Yeah. I don't remember.
There was one more regular who wasn't in the lineup. That was a very depleted lineup, was the point. But the entire point of Chris Drury was that, well, he won as a player. He had the long decorated leadership stint in Buffalo.
Has he won as a player?
Yeah, he won the cup as a rookie in Colorado. He won the Conn Smythe that year. He was the rookie of the year. So, like, you get a little credit for that. The mindset of this guy was a leader. He had a lot of success as an NHL player. We feel strongly about him. He's going to get this team to play the way we want to play. And, you know, we're still chasing that John Tortorella 2011 forecheck cycle you into a pulp style of play that's gone entirely out of style in the entire league. But, like, that was the message. And number one, the first point I want to make here talking about culture, and this is something I think the Rangers have struggled with. There is no one way to do everything. You know, what culture works for Florida might not work for the Oilers or might not work for the Rangers. And that's really the danger in trying to import guys from a bunch of different places to try and blend all of that together. Because, like, I don't want to be that guy, but, like, lest we forget who Jacob Trouba's captain was in Winnipeg and, like, how that situation played out. And then we ended up bringing him in later on after the fact. You know, do you know how bad it has to be for a coach to look around in December and be like, screw this, I'm out? Can you imagine how toxic the vibes had to have been in Winnipeg for Paul Maurice to look around and say, I'm not dealing with this anymore, you guys figure it out, and to just quit in season? Do you know how infrequent that happens in professional sports? So that's number one. You think about Gaudreau, and look, I can still vividly picture Rick Carpinello was still the Athletic Rangers writer at the time, but he wrote an anonymous column where he talked to 3 former Rangers. And one of the questions was, how do you feel about adding Barclay Goodrow to this group? And the person said, Tampa Bay doesn't win the Stanley Cup without Barclay Goodrow, which, first of all, he played like the 11th most minutes on that team. Let's pump our brakes a smidge. But, like, just because Tampa Bay had Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov and Victor Hedman and Andrei Vasilevsky and Braden Point and Anthony Cirelli and Alex Killorn and Andre Palat and Mikhail Sergachev and Ryan McDonough, that does not give Barclay Goodrow all of those guys transitive properties. You know, just being around good leadership on good teams doesn't necessarily make you a good leader.
Well, we love hyperbole around here, Nick.
We do. Unfortunately, in hockey in particular, look at Canada. Canada lost to Latvia in the World Juniors,
bro.
In the World Juniors, because we're chasing guys who play within our system, who do things the way we want to. We're not building an all-star team. We're building the right team. I don't know, man.
Chris Kreider's going to be on Team USA in the.
Well, yeah, because Chris Drury's the assistant GM. That's why he got him and Trocheck on that team, because he's the assistant general manager. the point I was trying to make about culture and the big picture here is the Rangers for so long have just been trying to crib other people's stuff. You trade for Trouba, you trade for Fox, you bring in Panarin, and you say, we'll figure out the culture later on, but we know we don't want to lose. That was really the first benchmark of, well, we are rebuilding, but we don't want to lose. We don't want, Capo Caco and all these guys we've drafted to be around losing. That's always been the logic for teams like the Ducks, the Sabres, the Senators to spend in free agency. Well, we don't want to be a bunch of losers. We want to have veterans for these guys to lean on. And that's admirable. That makes sense. That's functional. But you didn't do anything to empower those guys, to make them feel like they were capable of assuming leadership roles, of taking the reins of this team. And we'll get to that, later in the episode. But I don't feel that they've ever really figured out who they are as a team. I don't feel like they've ever really figured out what their identity as a team is. They're front runners. When the game's going good, they can take care of that. When it's going bad, and it's gone bad at points last year. I mean, they won the President's Trophy last year. I went to 3 straight games where they lost by more than 4 goals last year. They had their fair share of stinkers against good teams like Vancouver, who came in and beat them 6-1, and bad teams like Buffalo, who beat them 6-0. It happens. But when you have a semblance of what you are, like last year, where we have resilience, we have great goaltending, we have great special teams. And we're not as talented as Florida, as Edmonton, as Dallas, as some of these other teams, but we got a lot of guts and we're never out of a game because if we get Panarin and Fox out there, we can do anything. But that's not culture. That's not a way to carry yourself.
Culture's not the same thing as talent. That's
the problem. That is the fundamental problem the Rangers have had for a long time. Yeah. They've consistently identified talent as being culture, and it's not the same thing.
Culture does not equate to talent, and talent does not equate to culture. There are so many great players in the league and and beyond, but that doesn't mean that if you put them all in the same room, you're going to have a great culture. The culture has to start with ownership and management. It comes trickle down economics actually works in the situation where ownership and management have to care about winning. If James Dolan and Chris Drury hate losing as much as they say they do, and they want to establish a culture of, okay, we are only going to bring in guys that create a locker room environment where losing is wholly unacceptable. We are only going to bring in guys that can drive winning hockey on the ice and have the mentality like a Kobe, like a LeBron,
Bro, I'll take Jimmy Butler at this point, dog.
Yeah, exactly. Like a Jimmy Butler, where losing is the worst thing you could possibly do. With guys like Kobe and LeBron, Jimmy Butler, and guys like that, they hate losing more than anything. Like we talked about last week, Michael Jordan's teammates did not love the guy. They were not his biggest supporters, a lot of them, right? They won 6 titles because there was a culture of greatness. You went to Chicago. If you were a Chicago Bull, you were expected to bring 110%, 24 hours a day, 10 months out of the year, 12 months out of the year, because you got to practice in the summer. You got to get better in the summer. You can't just sit around and go to Cabo for 4 weeks. You got to go and you got to work on your game and get better. That was the culture of the 90s Chicago Bulls. They won everything all of the time. No matter what happened, they were winning, right? They weren't they weren't singing Kumbaya. They weren't talking about their, oh, this guy got traded. Oh, but he was my friend. How could you do this to me? They didn't do that. Michael Jordan set the precedent, and Phil Jackson and the rest of the Chicago Bulls organization set the culture of, we are here to win championships, and we will do that at all costs. And they won 6 of them, right? What can the Rangers do to make that their culture? Because right now, Dolan and Drury and the rest of the management and Laviolette and a lot of the players, they all say they don't want to lose. They all say they want to win. They all say, oh, we're gonna
Diet starts Monday.
Diet
starts Monday.
Right. I mean, Kendra Miller with that amazing quote before the game against the Lightning. It's like, oh, we had the break. This is gonna be a turning point, and then they got dumpstered again. So like, players in the
Tampa Bay got rid of the best player in the history of their franchise, and they are better this year.
And here's the thing about that decision: Tampa Bay let go of Steven Stamkos, knowing he was cooked or falling, not nearly as good as he was prior to. They made that hard decision. It was unpopular. Steven Stamkos was a leader in the locker room. He had the captaincy. All the fans obviously loved him. He won 2 Stanley Cups. I mean, this guy is a legend in Tampa Bay. But management looked around the room and said, Steven Stamkos is not as good as he was. He's only going to get worse. And if we sign him to a long extension, this is going to work out really badly for us. So you know what they did? They made the hard decision to let go of their captain, their leader, and their best player. He signed to Nashville. And guess what? The Lightning aren't the Rangers. The Lightning are still winning games. I know they got Jake Ensel, and he's been really good for them, and they still have Vasilevsky. They had to trade away some other guys. What's his name is now in Utah? Sergachev. He got traded to Utah, so he's not even in Tampa Bay anymore. That team on paper isn't even all that amazing, and they're still winning games, and they're still, somehow still a dark horse in the Eastern Conference. The Rangers brought back the President's Trophy winning team minus like Eric Gustafsson and Barclay Goodrow.
And Blake Wheeler.
And Blake Wheeler. And they are falling apart at the seams, and it is just brutal. Like they're not pretending to try to win hockey games. Like they're saying everything. Like they're saying sweet nothings. They're whispering in your ear, about all the great things that they can do for you. But then when you ask them to do them, they're not there. But then they show up afterwards. They show up afterwards and like, oh, I'm so sorry. I missed your call. Oh, I missed your call. I'll get you right back the next time you ask for a favor. And the Rangers have asked them for a favor the next game, and you know what they did? Missed call. No one's answering the phone. No one's trying to do anything. Like that's the culture right now of the Rangers, and that's the culture because nothing is changing. You can trade Trouba. You can, for some reason, I guess you can trade Kaapo Kakko. Yeah, that was a decision. But like, until culture changes from the top to the bottom, this is the team and this is the effort, and nothing is going to change.
So while you were talking, you had started what you had just said with it starts at the top, it starts with management, it starts with ownership. And the Rangers want credit for saying the right things. The players do. And I think we can draw a direct 1-to-1 with Chris Drury wanting credit for saying, I would like to hire Mike Sullivan and I would like to hire Rod Brind'Amour, even though those aren't actual solutions to your problems. We talk about this all the time. There's action and there's intention. Whatever you intend to do isn't necessarily what you actually do. You do something and how that's perceived isn't the same as what you intended to do. You think about it like that, and the players want credit because they're saying the right things. Vincent Trocheck wants credit for saying, well, we didn't throw the general manager under the bus. I promise. We weren't doing that. Why would we do that? There's nothing wrong here. We're going to figure this out. We're all a bunch of good guys here. We all like what we're doing. And again, the general manager has repeatedly shown, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win, except get rid of players who are underperforming until it's already too late. Alienate the entire locker room in the process of doing that. I was having a back and forth with somebody on Twitter this morning about this, and I said, why isn't the general manager who quadrupled down on this group getting the blame right now? And he said, well, he didn't quadruple down on the group. He got rid of Gaudreau and he tried to get rid of Trouba. Trying is not doing. You don't get credit for, well, what would you want him to do? If you get outsmarted by your own players, you probably shouldn't be in a leadership position. Like, if you are getting outmaneuvered by an agent and a player, you probably need to fine tune your plans. For a long time, we've given the Rangers credit for the fact that they don't really leak, that they didn't have information trickle out, that they played things very close to the vest. And then all of a sudden, in the last 6 months, we get the stories that drop in the Post. We get the stories that drop nationally. The Kreider and Trouba being available in trades. It all paints a very weird picture, and it's a very non-linear. And the reason I use the word non-linear is typically when you have leak issues, you try and root it out. You try and get to the bottom of it. You drop false stories down the pipe and see who says it to plug the leak. And instead, we still got them trickling out, drippling out. And it just kind of feels like no one wants to take any accountability for this problem. The players want to say it's the coach. The coach probably feels like it's the players. The general manager feels like it's the players, and it may be the coach. And sure, fire Laviolette. I don't care. That don't make a difference. It doesn't change anything.
How many more head coaches are you going to fire before you realize, oh wait, it's not actually on the head coach? Because and again, Laviolette has made some man decisions. It's not. We're not absolving Laviolette of any blame here, because he deserves some of it. But it's the same core. We've been through 75 head coaches at
because
this point.
The core isn't just Gaudreau and Trouba, and that's the problem here. As long as you keep pretending, well, they got rid of the bad players. What else do you want him to do? The problem for 4 years has been the formula is one path: dominate special teams, elite goaltending, tread water at 5-on-5. The power play is non-existent, and they are drowning at 5-on-5. It doesn't matter how good the goalie is. It does not matter how good the penalty kill is. You need to score more goals than the other team to win the game. If you cannot score more goals than they do, you lose. That's how hockey works. Yep. This is not golf. You are not looking for the lower score until the Rangers start to fundamentally address, well, we're not scoring. Well, who do we pay to score on this team? Well, why aren't they scoring? Well, they're in their early 30s. They've played a lot of NHL games. They have a lot of miles on their bodies. Maybe they have begun age-related decline. And it's great. You want to play Zibanejad and Kreider, 13, 14 minutes a game. You want to take Zibanejad off the first power play. That's great. That's not solving the issue here. The team is not good enough. Fundamentally, the roster is not good enough. Where even if you wanted to run this as a pure meritocracy, where the guys who play well get more minutes, and you wanted to run Cooley with Hedl, with whomstever on their right. If you want to do, I don't even care. If you want to do Berard, I don't care. Whoever you want to put with those two as the first line and go down from there. You want to do Trocheck, Lafreniere, Panarin, second line, whatever. Great. That still does not solve the issue that the team is not good enough offensively, and the defense is bad. It's not just that the defense is ineffective. The defense is actively bad and losing them games. So on top of not being able to score, every goal against is basically 2 goals against because we can't score.
Right. And everything, like we talked about, where everything that could possibly go wrong is going wrong. They can't defend. They can't score at 5-on-5 or on the power play. They can't do much of anything. And again, a lot of people that don't watch the Rangers will look at the box score and say, oh, Igor letting up 5 goals on 13 shots. Oh, Igor followed up $11.5 million. It's like, dude, please just watch a game. Just go and again, we talked about this the other week as well. It's like even if you hate analytics, and you are eye test through and through forever, and all the numbers are nerd talk, and you're ruining the game. Whatever your bad opinion about analytics is, go watch the Rangers play. What is Shesterkin supposed to do? If you want to argue that, okay, one of the 5 goals that he gave up wasn't the best, okay, fine, I'll give you that. Okay, you still lose the game. It's not like the Rangers were all that close for the vast majority of the game. At a certain point, you can have Hasek in there, you can have Waugh in there, you can have Jacques.
You could have a literal brick wall in front of the net.
You can build a brick wall and have 1 brick missing for the Lightning or whichever team they play against to shoot on. and the Rangers will still lose that game because the Rangers are not generating enough offense and they're drowning defensively, like you mentioned. Like, it doesn't matter who's there because they won't look good regardless. You could put that walrus in there from that Geico commercial.
No free advertising. Continue.
Not sponsored. And they're still gonna lose the game. Like, this is what we mean. If none of the skaters on the Rangers want to contribute to winning hockey,
I don't even think it's a want. I don't think they can. That's the thing. I don't think they're physically capable.
If you want to change the word to can, if you want to change it from want to can or can to want or a combination of both, or if you have a third magic word you want to use, go right ahead. But at the end of the day, Igor Shesterkin cannot also play defense. He cannot also score goals. He cannot also generate offensive 5-on-5. He cannot also score the power play. He can't do all of these things. He can't forecheck. He can't do anything about this. Blaming Shesterkin is ridiculous. Again, did he give up one bad goal? Maybe two if you want to. Okay, fine. You can have that argument. They still lose that game regardless. Even if he saves those goals, they still lose. Okay, now what? Like, this team has so many issues up front and on the blue line that the solution is if they keep losing, I guess the solution would have to be to just sell and pray for Higgins. I don't
What do you want to sell? What, and like, that's the other part of this. Like, you have nothing to sell.
You can trade Kreider.
You could trade Kreider. You trade Miller. You trade Lindgren.
Could you like? I would have to think Trocheck has trade value.
I don't think
maybe.
He's leaving.
Listen. I'm not saying I think he will.
I got you.
I'm saying if push comes to shove and you were hard tanking, there probably is a market for Trocheck. There's probably a market for a lot of these guys. I would keep guys, like Cooley, like Hedel. I would have kept guys like Avokako, but I'm not the general manager of a hockey team, so what do I know? But bring up Othman. Honestly, trade Jonathan Quick in March if the season's over, and bring up Dylan Garand. Have him play a couple of NHL games. Have him be the backup of the future, or the goalie, because he's been lights out in the AHL from what I've seen. Okay, so you trade Quick and you have him take over the reins for a few games. That, by all means. This is, we had a comment here, and I wanted to highlight this earlier. This was the first comment we got from the show, and I'll pull it up here. What's the percentage chance you give the Rangers to make the playoffs?
The math says like 15%.
I'm a little bit more optimistic. I want to say like 25, maybe 30, because the Metro is still so close. Because there's so many teams in the East that are ahead of the Rangers right now that aren't scary. Like, dude, by the way, I want to highlight this too. The Montreal Canadiens currently have more points than the New York Rangers.
Hey,
if you would have said that 6 months ago, I mean, you'd be laughed out of town. Montreal sits at 35 points right now. They've won 2 in a row. They're 6-4 in their last 10. The Rangers have 33 points and are 2-8 in their last 10 games with no end in sight. This is the reality. This is where we are.
So the Rangers currently have a .471 points percentage through 35 games. They're on pace for 77 standings points. To make the playoffs, you probably need 98 standings points, if I had to guess. So there's 35 games remaining, 82 minus 35 is 47. So you have a potential 94 points remaining. Of those 94 points, you have 30. You have 33 right now. You have 94 potential points to get. You probably need to play 650-ish hockey, winning percentage-ish. 640, 650, something like that, the rest of the way to make the playoffs. If you want to be optimistic, it might be more than that. It might be a little bit lower than that. Like you said, the Metro isn't very good, which is why you're not that far out of it. But you're talking about you're talking like a 20% improvement in your standings points performance right now. And there is no positive regression here. There's not somebody who's massively underperforming based on the numbers that would lead me to believe an explosion's coming. Zach Hyman had 3 goals in the first 20 games the Oilers played, but he had the same amount of shots on goal. The expected goals were relatively in line with his career averages. He missed a few weeks. He came back. He scored 8 goals in the 10 games since he came back. The numbers are starting to work itself out. You look at Kreider, you look at Zibanejad, you look at Trocheck, you look at Lafreniere. None of those guys' expected goals and shooting percentages are in a place where there's massive room. A little bit of room, sure. One more goal here and there, that's within reason for what the math says. But just working out the math, there isn't an obvious solution here. If the power play gets going again, okay, that's a different conversation. That's not something we can really work the math out on the way you can for 5-on-5 play and individual performances. But there's no help is coming. That's the point I want to keep. I want to really emphasize here.
Help is not on the way.
This is not like years past where it's limp to the deadline, get guys in here, reinforce, deepen the lineup. You're not burning assets for this group. It would be negligence to burn assets to add to this team. You sold low on Kakko. I feel like you probably got reasonable value for Trouba. That's fine. But you don't have solutions to your problem. So you're going to tell me we're going to go the rest of the way playing Vakanainen and Borgen or Jones, Lindgren, Schneider, Miller, Fox, whatever. We're playing this forward group, these defensemen. We have Shesterkin, we have Quick. What are we trying to accomplish the rest of this season? And don't tell me it's make the playoffs, because that's disingenuous. Sitting here right now, I feel like it's disingenuous for you to say the goal is to make the playoffs. What are we trying to accomplish here? What do we have to prove? And don't give me that we're playing for pride. We've been trying to play for pride for a month and a half, and we've been getting our teeth kicked in. At a certain point, you are what you are. And the Rangers' record says they stink.
And that's because they do. This is a team that, at least with Edmonton last season, they still had McDavid. They still had Draisaitl. These are guys that could step on the ice and score a hat trick in the same shift if they so wanted to. That's how much of game changers they are as talents. Am I being a little bit exaggerative? Yeah, sure, but they are two of the best players on the planet, and the Rangers do not have those players as skaters. Their best player is their goaltender, which is fine, but you need your best offensive players to, breaking news, I don't know if you know this, Nick, contribute offensively. They need to forecheck. They need to back check. They need to skate. They need to fight for loose pucks. They need to throw passes to each other that will actually connect and not try to throw cross-ice passes through 9 people that will never connect ever in a million years. I don't know why the Rangers have this infatuation with passing through 6 people. Every game, there's 70 passes that never get through because they keep forcing the issue. At a certain point, it's wild to me that no one has sat this team down. Maybe they have, and they just aren't listening with the thought process of, hey, stop passing. Just shoot. Just shoot the puck. Keep it simple, stupid. Just get the puck on net and drive to the net and see what happens.
When you're fighting it, keep it simple.
Stop forcing these weird-ass passes that have zero chance of going to the person that you intended to. Stop. A few weeks ago in Zibanejad on a 2-1-1 tried to spin-a-rama 180 pass to whoever was with him, and that pass very obviously got deflected. My brother in Christ, just shoot the puck, man. Why are we trying these weird-ass plays that just aren't working, and they haven't worked, and they continue to not work, and you keep forcing them? Shoot the puck. Keep it as when things aren't going your way, you have to simplify your game, not make it even more complicated. What are they like that? It boggles my mind at a certain point how ridiculous this season is becoming. And a lot of it is, the talent's not quite there. We've seen drop-offs, a lot of the other things that we talked about, but some of it is just dude, you're trying the same pass 67 times in the second period. Stop, dude. You keep trying it. It's not working. Try something else.
That's one of the signs of a broken player, when they don't know what to do in simple situations. That materially tells you he has no confidence in his ability to make plays, so he's just throwing things at the wall and hoping instead of moving with intention. We've talked There's at least one or two episodes of this podcast titled that hoping isn't the same thing as a plan. And like, it's not, the running jokes of like, my 5-year plan is a Bible level miracle will happen or something along those lines. I've been making those jokes for 4 years now. I've been making those jokes in jest for 4 years because it's a very tenuous proposition, both on style, the players they've courted, the styles those players play, their path in terms of how they want to win games. All of it is very tenuous. And you are seeing when the different spokes of the wheel get out of alignment, just how quick it all fell apart. All of this was very fragile over the last few seasons. And you pound the desk about 5-on-5 play and special teams and goaltending. And you want teams to be realistic with themselves. You don't want them to be delusional. But if you're sitting here right now and you're telling me the only problem is effort, you're being delusional. Yeah, there are effort issues, but this roster's not good enough. Fundamentally, it's not. And you could say, well, Kreider's hurt. Okay, that's one guy. Does Mika Zibanejad have an injury we don't know about? Does Lafreniere? Does Trocheck? If they do, sit them until they are better and let's play better hockey. If not, then we all need to take a collective deep breath and be adults here, because that's your job as a general manager, a president of hockey operations. Is you need to be the adult in the room that can objectively evaluate the situation and make a determination for corrective action. Because for 3.5 years now, it's been, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Don't worry. We got Zibanejad, we got Kreider, we got Trocheck, we got Panarin, Shesterkin, Fox. We'll figure it out. The rest isn't hard. We got those guys. That'll get us in the dance. All we got to do is get the right path. We can make the conference finals. And then if it's a coin flip in the conference finals, it'd probably be a coin flip in the cup final. And we've been doing that for 4 years now. If you want to give the general manager one more coach, God bless you. I don't think he deserves another coach. Frankly, I don't think this group deserves another coach either. There's no solutions here, man. Unless you get the guys with the ironclad no movements to agree to leave, we're going to be doing this for a while. And I struggle to imagine Mika Zibanejad uprooting his life. I struggle to imagine Vincent Trocheck uprooting his life. A lot of these guys have realized that this is the good life. You never get held accountable. You make a lot of money. You live in New York. You get to raise a family in New York. You get to go to really good private or public schools, depending on your proclivity. If you're how you want to spend your $7.5 to $9 million of James Dolan's money, it's a good gimmick, And I was talking to one of my Islander fan friends over the weekend, and he's telling me it's basically the same thing out there. It's just that no one cares about the Islanders, so they're not getting any heat for this because it's the same thing. They've kept the same group for a long time. All those guys are very comfortable. They make a lot of money. They all have no movement clauses. It's a good gig if you can get it. It's a really good gig if you can get it.
This is tiring. All of this is tiring to watch. It's tiring to be this frustrated at the same. We've been frustrated about the same problems since episode 1 of the show. We've done this for like 3.5 years now. It's at a certain point, man. We can't keep repeating the same things because if we can see it, we're not part of the team. We're fans. If we can see the same problems, the same issues, the same, rocks and the what is the shovel that people are, the team is stepping on every single time, and they in the old cartoons where you step on the shovel, it hits you in the head, and then you say, oh, I'm not doing that again, and then you step over the shovel again, it hits you in the head, and then you say, oh, I'm not doing that again, and then and the cycle repeats. If we can see that, surely they can too, right? Surely at a certain they have to want to change, and that's one of the biggest problems too, is they have to want to correct this. And I'm sure again they don't like losing. I'm sure they want to change this, but show me you don't want to. Show me you want to win. You can tell me all of the sweet nothings you want, post game, pre game, at practice. You do all of that. Sure. Do that as much as you want. Show me during the game that you want to win. Until you do that, I'm not believing you. I'm sorry. It's not happening.
Wanting to do something and doing something are not the same thing. You know, a lot of people are going to go into the new year on Wednesday saying, I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to eat right. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to read more. I'm going to call my parents more. I'm going to go out and socialize more. I'm going to get involved in the community. You do actually have to go out and do that. You know, you do actually, if you want to see results, you have to change things. You know, I started running at the beginning of December because I'm one of the people who said, well, if I'm going to wait till January, why don't I just start now? You know, let me get started on this now so that by the time January comes, I have a reasonable baseline and I know targeting what I need to work on in my given path. And the Rangers haven't. They haven't been forewarning. You know, you jokingly said last week maybe Drury knew it was all going to fall apart, and that's why he didn't trade the first round pick last year. But like, unless that's true, I don't see a lot of forward planning for this group. You know, they had a very finite timeline where this year you had to pay Miller, you had to pay Lafreniere, you had to pay Shesterkin. All of those deals coming up at the same time was a point of no return. You could not conceivably bring the same group back one more time after this year. You spent all of your money. You know, I've said this at least 3 times over the last 3 weeks. When Chris Drury took the Rangers job, the Rangers had $20 million in cap space and basically no financial commitment. Nobody was expensive other than Trouba and Panarin. Those were their only 2 expensive players. You know, if you want to say in a flat cap, Kreider's 6.5, whatever it is expensive. Sure, whatever. He had 3 expensive players on his roster when he assumed control of this team. He burned all of his financial flexibility on Zibanejad, Fox extensions, on Reeves, Gaudreau, and Blais. Then, not only did he not address those issues, he had to burn stuff to get rid of his mistakes, to get rid of Patrick Nemeth, you know, 2 seconds to get rid of a bad contract that we all knew was bad the moment it was signed. You know, if you couldn't play good defense in the playoffs on the Colorado Avalanche, you could not play good defense on the New York Rangers. Like, I think we need to look at this kind of objectively and simply. If you could not be good on the Avalanche, you probably weren't going to be good on the Rangers. You know, the Avalanche, they had Byram, they had Makar, Sam Girard, Devon Tays. If they couldn't find a guy to work with you, who were the Rangers going to play with you that was going to make you work, man? It's one of those things where every now and then give one up for the people in the cheap seats because, yeah, I don't have an economics degree from Yale. I can't do biannual equations or whatever the hell they're called. I can't do that type of math. Okay. The extent of my math is limited to like 2-function math on a calculator or on a Post-it note. Okay. I might not be able to do that, but I can watch the game and tell you Mika Zibanejad loses every single puck battle.
Yep.
I can tell you he's not forechecking. I could tell you he's got no clue what to do. If I can do that, why can't the team sit him? Why can't we sit him? If we're going to sit Chris Kreider, sit Zibanejad again. Because at a certain point, we need corrective action. If you allow this to and that's the thing. This is the last thing I'll say before I throw it to you. If you are as disgusted with this as you claim to be, do something about it. Don't just talk about it. Don't tell me, oh, this is unacceptable. We need to be better. Great, do something about it, Chris. Do something. Tell me. Show me you care. Don't tell me, oh, well, we traded Kakko. We traded Jacob Trouba. Okay. Is that making Zibanejad play better? Making Kreider, Trocheck, Panarin, Lafreniere, anybody play better? No. Well, I guess that's the season because that's what they're telling us.
I did all I could.
Exactly. You know who tells you about their best? Losers.
Yeah.
Losers tell you about
this
their
comment
best.
Here from Just Me 77 who says,
unfortunately,
Mika has to go. I don't care about his contract. Yes, we're all in agreement. You see the problem though. Yes, you're going back and forth here with somebody else in the comments, and I want to explain something to you. Mika Zibanejad has a no move clause, right? Which means
so they can't even put him on waivers.
Which means he can't be traded. He can't be put on waivers. He cannot go anywhere unless Mika Zibanejad agrees to it, right? And also, you cannot buy him out because his contract is structured on bonuses. So if you buy him out, the Rangers get no cap relief. So you might as well just keep him. Like he's
give
not
him another job.
I
Make him mop the floors.
Yeah.
Make him work the men's room. Make him hand out paper towels.
Mika Zibanejad genuinely needs to go home for a few weeks. Genuinely. And you know, I'm not saying this to rag on him more. I'm not saying this, you know, he needs to go home and recharge. He needs to go home and remember what kind of a player he can be, what kind of player he's shown to be, what kind of player he was when he scored 5 goals against the Capitals. Somewhere deep inside of Zibanejad is that player. It's deep. It's buried. It's buried underneath. It's like when you're in the garage and you just got a million things piled up and you haven't had the time, in air quotes, to clean it out. That's what's going on with him right now. Send him home. Have him take a deep breath. Walk around with his newborn and just chill out. Have him come back in a few weeks and see how he does. If he comes back a different player, okay. Bring him back. Maybe bring him back on the first power play unit if he's shown that he can be a good offensive player again. Reacclimate him to the top 6. If he doesn't, then you continue to just sit him. Because if he's so cooked beyond repair that him taking that leave of absence isn't going to fix the issue, then you have to send him home again. Like he's not fit. He's literally at that point not fit to play because he's not doing anything on the ice. He's currently, and we laughed about this a few years ago with Brett Howden, how he was the cardio boy of the Rangers, where he's
Tony Snell.
He would be skating and he would be physically on the ice. And then the game would end, and you'd be like, "What did Brett Howden do?
Did he play tonight?"
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, he got 11 minutes of ice time." I think the MSG credited him with 1 hit, even though I don't know when that could have been. I think that was a mercy stat. What did he do? And that's what Zibanejad is currently doing.
And it's multi-layered.
Yeah.
It's not like the transition game is not there at all. Like the skate speed is down. Like I wrote that down for him too. His skate speed, he's still in the upper echelon, 75th percentile highest speed, 85th percentile for the highest range of speed, and 84th percentile for distance covered. Like he's still out there and moving. It's just he doesn't engage. And unfortunately, the NHL doesn't track, forecheck pressures. It doesn't track the types of data that you would need to get that. You would need to manually watch the game and track that yourself. It doesn't track board battles because shit like that would be useful, because a lot of us are all trying to get to the bottom of this. We are all on the internet spending a lot of time trying to discern how a team that won the President's Trophy last year could fall off this dramatically in this short a period of time without a markedly different roster. And there are a lot of things, it's not just one thing. This is like 8, 9 things all going wrong simultaneously. And it's hard to wrap your head around that. I understand that, we're human. We like simple answers that we can wrap our heads around and accept. And there are like 8 things going wrong right now. So it's complicated to understand.
Yeah, there's no solution. There really isn't one, because the biggest problems are unmovable. And okay, like we talked about, you could trade Kreider, you can maybe find a trade for Trocheck, maybe find a trade for Lindgren. Okay, but now what? Like there was never a plan for what happened, like what to do if this happens. There was never, and it in some aspects it's tough to plan for that, especially after how well last season went. But you take a look at their age, and you take a look at curves and how players usually will tend to not play as well in their mid 30s as they were in their late 20s and stuff like that. That's just how pro sports works. The lack of looking ahead to the future and being honest with yourself about what kind of team you really have has been the ultimate downfall of the team. And a lot of the blame is on the players. A lot of the blame is on the coaching staff. But most of the blame should be on management, because this is their team. This is their decisions. This is their bed, and now they have to lie in it. And, we're
all looking for the guy who could have done this.
Like we highlight all of the deficiencies on the ice, and they are all warranted. But They didn't put themselves out there. Management put them there. Okay, well, if management put them there, they have to answer to this. And right now, they're kind of not. And I'm struggling to figure out why.
Happy birthday, Igor. You get to play Florida behind the worst defense in the league. Good luck.
I saw a tweet. Let's see if I could pull this up. I said somebody said the number of high danger chances the Rangers will be giving up as a birthday present will be a violation of the Geneva Convention. Joe Fortunato. Like that, yeah.
I might go to the movies, in all honesty. I might watch the first period and then go to the movies. I don't have it in me to waste my time, man. I'm too tired at the end of the day to deal with this nonsense. Like, Florida's good, and like Florida's not even playing that well, and I'm expecting like 5-1, 6-2. It's just at a certain point it becomes a waste of time. But let's get out of here. That'll do it for this week's show. If you could be so kind, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, throw the show a 5-star review. If you're watching over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the alarm bell, get a notification whenever new content goes live. Inching towards 1,000. We're getting there. We're getting there. We will talk to you guys next week, unless something else weird happens between now and then. See you guys soon.
Later.